the Nazis were almost enchanted. They had never really met a Jew besides, a public defender or a lawyer. So they had a Jewish friend for the first time in their life. And um, they almost were obsessed to some extent.
When Jared Klickstein went to jail in 2015, he made some unlikely acquaintances. His journey began with addiction.
Being, addicted to drugs for many years and on and off homeless throughout California, mostly Skid Row in Los Angeles and the Tenderloin in San Francisco. Grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and my parents were unfortunately both heroin addicts. This was relatively stable for a few years until they started using crack cocaine when I was probably in second grade, and things just got incredibly rough. And by the time I was 12 years old, they were arrested, basically. And I was fortunately adopted by my aunt and uncle in Oakland, California. My father is Jewish, and my mother was born Irish Catholic, but was adopted by Jews. And we identified culturally Jewish, culturally American Jewish, but all my grandparents were, both my grandfathers fought in World War II, and we really just identified as American, and we were proud to be American, and we weren't religious. I went to UC Santa Cruz, where by freshman year, a lot of my friends were casually using heroin, and it really hit the dorms super hard. And I actually avoided it. I knew that my parents were heroin addicts, so I didn't touch heroin. But I didn't know what Oxycontin was. I just thought it was a pill. I didn't understand that it was essentially refined heroin. And so I started messing around with that. And once I kind of felt like in a sad way, it was sort of my destiny, and it sort of made sense. And it was hard to accept for about a year, but I understood that, you're a heroin addict, you're a drug addict, and this is the only way that you'll ever feel okay. Over the span of 10 years, I got arrested many times, had many contacts with the police. But this was in California, and I never really got held for more than like 3 or 4 days.
Jared experienced homelessness, but one incident changed the course of his life.
I got mugged by another homeless person in a Panda Express, and I defended myself against this mugging. And when the police came, they observed the camera footage of this altercation, and they actually arrested me for assault with a deadly weapon. Eventually, they did drop the charges, because in reality, it was just two crackheads fighting over chicken at Panda Express. So the judge obviously thought this was sort of a joke, but I made a deal with my public defender to request that I get a 6-month violation in lieu of probation. So I actually requested to stay in jail for a long period of time so I could get off heroin. I was sleeping outside, fearing for my life every night and fighting people. I was fighting daily already for my life. So going to jail was basically the same thing, except you got a bed. So to me, it was an upgrade. The general public should be fearful of going to jail. I mean, jail is not fun. It's dangerous, and it's usually a pretty terrible experience. But there was heavy racial segregation, and the main driving force behind the whole setup was race politics and race gangs. But what surprised me was, at the end of the day, people were kind of goofy and kind of a lot of people viewed those rules as stupid, and people got along a lot better than I thought they would. And there was a larger sense of respect that I foresaw. I walked into the dorm, and the first guy that came up to me was a guy named John, who, when you walk into the dorm, someone from your race comes up to you. And so he came right up to me, and he said, "Are you a Wood?" And I said, yes. I knew that, that meant white guy. And he said, "Okay, cool. I'm a Nazi. I'm a neo-Nazi, but, we roll with the Woods," or whatever. So he was like, "Here, let me, bring you to the shot collar."
Jared says he aligned himself with the white supremacists while keeping his Jewish identity a secret.
I felt pretty welcome, but at the same time, a man with swastika tattoos was the first person that came up to me in that dorm. And ironically, he was quite pleasant. But yeah, at that moment, I got pretty scared about revealing that I was Jewish. And I kept it hidden. I didn't really think about it while I was homeless or anything, but when I got to jail, it's almost like I forgot, and then I saw a guy with a swastika tattoo, and then I remembered. And my last name is Klickstein, which is pretty Jewish. So I thought, that could be a problem. But at some point, I actually realized that there was a man named Lou in there that got a special diet, and this special diet I observed one day. It came in a blue box, and I noticed that there was Hebrew lettering on it. So that immediately made me realize that he received a special Jewish or kosher diet. So upon talking to him about that, he informed me that it wasn't a problem at all, that the neo-Nazis were such a minority, and just white guys in general were a minority, that they just didn't care if you were Jewish, as long as they needed numbers, and they weren't exceptionally hateful, which was almost I viewed as like pathetic almost. But it was cute, but also pathetic at the same time. And so I did come clean, and the Nazis thought it was sort of funny. And they didn't express any hate, which was almost disappointing. It was extremely odd. So they had a Jewish friend for the first time in their life, and they almost were obsessed to some extent, and were flabbergasted that there was a Jew standing next to them in jail. And I think it broke down a lot of their preconceived notions about Jewish people, because the first thing they said were, "What are you doing here? Can't you make a phone call? Doesn't your uncle own the jail? Like, isn't your whole family judges and lawyers? Like, can't you do something about this?" And I informed them that I was just like them. I was just a criminal, and I came from a blue collar background. And pretty quickly, I think a lot of their beliefs changed. They thought, "Oh my God, how could the Jews run the world?" While at the same time, I'm standing next to a Jew in jail, who's worse off than me. He's like a homeless crackhead Jew, So it actually gave me a lot of respect in jail. The fact that I was such a downtrodden Jew. My life changed for the good once I came out as Jewish in jail, in terms of my level of respect.
Embracing his Jewish identity came with a sort of fringe benefit in the form of food.
So it's not like I desired this meal because I wanted to keep kosher. Lou informed me that it was incredibly valuable. It was actually one of the most valuable things in jail or prison is the kosher meal. And jail is a lot more fun when you have a few dollars. You can do fun things. You can buy better food. Gamble. Gambling is very fun and very time consuming, and that's the ultimate goal, is to make time pass. So that was my desire to get the kosher meal, and it is very good. I mean, jail food is bad, and the kosher meal was good. So understandably, it was worth a lot of money.
Jared's troubles didn't end when he got out of jail in 2016.
Jail was great in terms of getting me off heroin, but it did not prepare me to stay off heroin. So since I got out of jail, I've never become physically addicted to heroin again. But that doesn't mean that I didn't relapse and destroy my life multiple times. So I think 2 times since I got out of jail, I used heroin, and within 24 hours, I completely burned down my entire life, and actually ended up with some pretty severe health consequences. The first time I used heroin after staying clean, after getting out of jail, I woke up and was missing a portion of my face. I blacked out on a combination of meth, heroin, and crack cocaine, and woke up in a bathtub missing, part of my mouth. And you think that would have kept me clean, but I actually used drugs one more time, and that time I blacked out and I woke up missing my toe. So the last 2 times I've used drugs, I've woke up missing a body part. And that's unfortunately what I needed to sort of curb the mental obsession. So I was fortunate enough to end up at a long-term nonprofit treatment center where they let me live there for many months, and provided me with things like cognitive behavioral therapy and counseling.
As part of his recovery, he penned a memoir titled Crooked Smile.
It's a miracle. I mean, I got a book deal, and the book came out. I am confident that it will just lead to even more adventures and a bigger and more beautiful life. Um, because people really need to hear this. I mean, we all see crazy homeless drug addicts in cities, and you just think of them as a lost cause and just mentally ill, no point of no return. And I was one of those people. I mean, I was a guy that used to scream on the street and dig through trash cans, and I was a menace to society. And now I'm a relatively normal person. So I think it's not to sound self grandiose or anything, but it's an important story for America right now.
Jared describes what changes he'd like to see.
So, I mean, we need to change the whole entire system. I mean, we need to, first of all, it'd be nice to enforce laws again. I mean, I live in California. It doesn't help that I was able to commit crime with impunity for 10 years. That's not helpful to a homeless drug addict, to just let them commit crimes. But at the same time, sending them to prison for the rest of their life isn't helpful either. So I think we really need to build infrastructure for long-term treatment centers that are not profit-driven.
And he remains humbled by where his journey has taken him.
I think my life's better now than what I would have had, and I'm not talking financially. I'm not rich or anything, but I have such a sense of gratitude that I just would never have had if I had just stayed on the straight and narrow. So I live for the adventure of life and wherever this takes me. And listen, I have a very unique life experience, and it's not a life experience that a lot of people would want, but I'm grateful for it. And it gives me a sense of responsibility to inform people of the direction that we need to go to help people. I mean, I feel a responsibility, and I'm grateful for that.